Welcome, everyone. My name's Dom, and this is the complete review of Apple's original HomePod. And, well, there's a lot to say about it. Apple recently canceled the manufacturing and production of the original HomePod, and they are now focusing on the HomePod Mini, which has been selling much better. But the HomePod, even though it's only been out for a few years, there's a lot to say about it. So I thought it was time to give the original HomePod a complete review. So let's get into it. So the HomePod was initially announced by Apple in June of 2017. It was touted to be the premium home wireless speaker solution. It was supposed to compete with the higher ups like Sonos and other brands, I guess. And the focus of that was, I think, a way for Apple to kind of take away from the fact that this thing had Siri, right? It was in essence a smart speaker, but they didn't want it to be a smart speaker because I think Apple knows that Siri is just not quite there when compared to the competition, such as Alexa and Google for, home assistants. But I know that they needed to release something. They knew they needed to release something in that space. So they covered it up with this premium audio solution that also had Siri. So it could be focused on the merits of its sound quality and the sound it produced, and not so much on Siri. And for anybody who has used Siri for any amount of time, she is not quite all there. She's all right and has gotten better, but Siri itself has just not been a very refined experience, a very grand experience the way that some of the other platforms have it, and the way that you would expect from Apple to deliver for their first virtual assistant. They started it a long time ago. That was built into the iPhone 4S, for God's sake, back in 2012. So the fact that Siri is just so underwhelming is kind of disappointing, but the HomePod as a speaker is something quite spectacular. Now, it initially was set for $350, and it was, a simple product. You can get it in black, you can get it in white. It came with an A8 processor, which is basically the chip found inside of one of the iPhones. It had Bluetooth, it had Wi-Fi. It was a pretty, awesome product. And, between the specs and the functions and the features that it toted for sound, it seemed like it was going to be this incredible sounding experience. And it is. Acoustically, the HomePod is probably one of my most favorite speakers to listen to. Not because the quality is the best of the best. It's not so much that. It is that the HomePod has a wonderful balance, and for its size and where you can place it and what it does for that sound, it is something truly spectacular. Mids are nice and crisp. Highs come in clear as a bell. Bass is low and punchy, but not overpowering. Everything is balanced, and between the numerous tweeters and the single 4-inch woofer and the microphones and the HomePod's ability to calibrate itself, which it does exquisitely. When I first got a couple HomePods, I noticed something after about 10 minutes of listening to them. When I went from one room to another, I couldn't tell that I had changed speakers. It sounded like it was just audio everywhere from the exact same source. And I'm assuming that's because of the built-in calibration from the numerous microphones that the thing has. It's really good at making itself sound the way that it's supposed to sound. And in that regard, it does a fantastic job. It has the little screen on the top, which is really cool. It's like a little circle OLED thing, and you can increase the volume, decrease the volume, and engage Siri. All good stuff. Simple and easy to use. Now, as far as Siri herself, though, therein lies the big issue. Besides the price, the HomePod didn't come out very finished and refined. There was issues with AirPlay, and there were issues where you couldn't have multiple timers and just numerous other things. It felt very weak, very simple, very linear, not very polished in terms of the smart home assistant aspect. For sound, it was great, but for everything else that the HomePod needed to be able to do, it could not do it particularly well. As time went on, Apple added lots of features and lots of support and fixed lots of bugs, but using the HomePod on a day-to-day basis was not fun. Lack of third-party support for things like Spotify and what have you were another issue that held the HomePod back. If you wanted to listen to music on the HomePod with Siri, super easy, you needed to use Apple Music. And for a lot of people who are in Apple's walled garden, that's really not a tall ask. It's not hard to envision those people like me and like other Apple fans that, that would be something that they would just already have, so it wouldn't be an issue. But for a lot of other people, Spotify's a big platform, and the lack of being able to do, Spotify or even Amazon Music or any of the other platforms without doing basically like a weird AirPlay, like send your audio from your phone or from your device and AirPlay it to the speaker. It was this whole workaround to get it to work. It's not the experience that you would be expecting or wanting from a $350 smart speaker, which is a shame because everything else about the speaker is kind of like wonderful. Setup is super easy. Bring your phone really close to it. It does the rest. It automatically updates, and you can basically kind of control it and do stuff to it within the Home app that comes on any Apple device. Like overall, there was a lot of good things, but the use of Siri and the sort of locked in barrier, it just felt like there was this premium device that you just couldn't tap its potential with on a day-to-day basis. And like I said, while Apple did improve and add new things to the HomePod over time, the only thing it really had going for it was sound. And the unfortunate part when it comes to sound, and I've talked about this in the AirPods Max review, is like a lot of people, they have a certain sound signature that they prefer, and then they have a certain sound signature that they're used to, and they have a certain sound signature they're looking for. There's a combination of stuff. But when it comes to like what good sound is, until you hear it, and until you kind of sit down and notice why it's good and what to look for, it's just like wine. It's an acquired taste. You learn to taste and to hear certain things, and it becomes part of the experience. Then you just can't help but look for it every single time. And so in that regard, competitors for, with Google, like the Google Home Max and Sonos and stuff like that, I would never in a million years compare those sounds and say that they are even close to what the HomePod as an overall sounding speaker does. It, in that regard, is excellent, even with its grueling problems. But when you get like great services like Google Home and Alexa and what have you on Sonos and the Google products, it's a tough ask. Siri herself is just plagued with numerous just issues. Even to this day, I still have problems. And like I said, while she's gotten better, it's just so surprising that is the kind of defining feature of what is otherwise an excellent product. AirPlay works seamlessly now, texting, receiving texting, doing the stupid intercom thing between two people. Siri shortcuts is Apple's pseudo solution to kind of adding more functionality to Siri. And in a way, if you've never dealt with the Siri shortcuts before, or really dug deep into the technical side of what that is, Siri shortcuts is something like exceptionally robust. It can do things, your Siri with Siri shortcuts can do things that a lot of other smart speakers cannot do, because you can programmatically make her do things pertaining to things with like SSH, which is a type of communication protocol. Like I can use Siri. I had it set up. I don't have it set up now because of a key issue. It's not important technical details, but I had it up so Siri could actually like lock my computer, unlock my computer, change the wallpaper with the sound of my voice. You can add all that stuff in. And that is things that you're not going to get from other smart speakers, but it requires an advanced technical knowledge to be able to really utilize. Now, mind you can share shortcuts and this, that, and the other thing, but unless you're willing to put in a lot of effort and a lot of time, it's really not the game-changing thing that Siri needed. Siri needed to be able to answer questions, and Siri needed to be able to do the things that you asked, and just basic stuff, right? It sounds very simple, and I think I'm not exactly sure how Amazon does it per se, but I know that when it comes to Google, they seem to be using just Google search off of, like they just run their Google Assistants and it just reads more or less off of what Google search pulls in, which is a great way for Google to be able to provide more information, accurate information that's constantly changing and evolving. And it's quick and easy, and it's built into the thing that they already do best. And that's why I think that, Apple might be trying to get into the search game, another way for them to kind of wall off their walled garden of Apple and everything's Apple, and ditch Google, and then use the new Apple search and all the people who would use Apple search as a way to kind of improve Siri, as a way to kind of add to that experience. I don't know. That's a theory. That's a working thing, but it's a shame that the HomePod itself, which ended up having, they dropped the price to like $300, and I still don't think that was low enough. When it first launched, I think like $250, would have been more reasonable. It does sound great, but between, the weird like wood staining thing where like if you leave the HomePod, like the rubber ring would leave like a white, ring on wood surfaces, lack of certain things, being able to play like third party and what have you, like it's very limited. Like if you didn't have the rest of the Apple stuff, you weren't going to have a great experience with this product. So it was only for people like me with a bunch of Apple crap. And I would have liked to have seen a few other things too. Like I'm not a big fan of Wi-Fi. Like I love good Wi-Fi, but there's this thing called PoE, which is power over Ethernet. The HomePod has a plug that you can pull out with a lot of force in order to get into what I'm assuming is a port for obviously power, but for servicing the thing as well. But it would have been nice to see a variant of the HomePod that you could just plug in and give it power over Ethernet for those people who had that kind of equipment at home, to where you don't have to rely on Siri, didn't have to rely on Wi-Fi, would always be able to be connected and would be able to get power without needing two cables plugged into your HomePod. Just one, the power would be provided over Ethernet, right? PoE, so power over Ethernet. That would have been a cool thing. I would have liked to have seen. I know that most people would probably never use it. Like less than 1% of HomePod owners would have gone that far as to use that feature. But it's one of those things that I think would have kind of made a bit of a difference. And I don't think Apple canceling it is the smartest idea. I think there are still people who, kind of want to, add to their collection of current HomePods. It just takes time because they were so expensive. And if they brought the price down, I think that would have helped considerably. Some other features I would have liked to see would have been like full Apple TV support, right? The ability to turn it on, turn it off without using Siri shortcuts. I don't know if they've added that now. I have Siri shortcuts that turn the thing on and turn the thing off. But like the ability to raise the volume and do all the stuff that the remote control can do per Apple TV would have been something that would have expected Siri to have been able to do. As a matter of fact, the HomePod should have been able to control lots of Apple stuff through the sound of your voice, specifically your voice, which they did add later for certain things, that it will, basically lock onto specifically your voice and only execute certain commands using your voice. But the ability to control and interact with things through a HomePod, every Apple thing in your house would have been an awesome piece of functionality. I also would have really liked a full voice restriction mode where Siri would only listen to you, so you don't have like friends or children or anybody who's messing with the your HomePod. You don't want Siri to ever listen to them, just you or particular family members or what have you. Stuff like that to really kind of lock in like the experience that you want to get. Like the HomePod's kind of should have been more or less an opportunity for a blank slate of controlling stuff with your voice while you're at home. And it does add some really cool things like if you have a lot of smart home stuff and you're using HomeKit, now called Home, I guess. Apple changed that. But if you have a lot of smart home stuff, just like the Apple TV, the HomePod is able to act as a sort of home base station that remotely allows you, with your phone, no matter where you are, as long as you have an internet connection with your phone, control all of your smart lights and smart applications and stuff like that remotely, which is awesome. There are definitely times where you're out and about and it's late and maybe you want to make it seem like someone's home. You could turn the lights on or anything like that, right? There's lots of pros to it, but the experience just never felt refined. The hardware feels refined. The hardware feels spot on. But the software and the services are just, they're lacking. They're lacking. And that kind of like summarizes everything that is with the HomePod. I'll probably end up getting a few more. I do eventually want to move out of my apartment and scale into a house. And I love the HomePod, and I would probably end up kind of filling up more spaces in any place I live with HomePods. But for right now, the ones I got, they're great. They work well. It's sad to see them go, but I get it. I do want to get a HomePod Mini and do a review for that. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely please throw a like on the video and subscribe to check it out. Should I make it and release it and all that fun stuff, right? So anyway, guys, yeah, that about wraps this one up. I mean, I would give the HomePod, I guess if I was going to give it a score, I would give it I don't know, let's say 3.75 series out of 5, right? So With all that being said, we will see what happens to it and what it grows into. But as I said before, guys, thank you for watching. Like I said, please consider subscribing, hit that like button. I'm doing the new thing. Please consider sharing the video. It helps the channel out a lot. Leave me your thoughts on HomePod and Siri and everything down below. I definitely want to hear from you guys about what your feelings were on this whole thing. And as always, talk to you soon.